So thank you everyone for joining and sharing what county you're from and why you're interested. That kind of helps Valerie and I. And our main goals today are just to kind of go over some of the impacts that we took away from Indiana Watershed Leadership Academy and really how it was helpful for developing a network and creating connections to watershed related resources and then just other resources as well, like things with the Plan Commission that help us with our positions as Ag and Natural Resource Educators. So my name is Veronica Bullock. I'm pre-extension in Franklin County.
And I'm Valerie Clingerman, and I'm the ANR in Knox County. So a brief overview on what is the Indiana Watershed Leadership Academy. So basically it helps train participants to lead watershed efforts in their communities. And obviously the goal is to improve water quality in Indiana. Because I know if you've seen a lot of the maps in Indiana, a lot of our water bodies are kind of in poor shape, but at least according to the standards that they use to look at them. So trying to improve those is always a good goal. But some of the topics that are covered, again, it's leadership, especially with those watershed steering committees and things like that. Some watershed science, communication, technology policy, and I'll add, some of the networking and just the resources and stuff like that that they also share. The resources were phenomenal because there were some resources that I've used before, but then they added like a ton. They shared so many resources that I hadn't used that it was really neat to be able to go, oh, well, I didn't realize this information was available for my county. So it was real eye-opening on that. And we have the course website listed here, and I think later on Veronica is going to open that up and kind of show you the website and the registration stuff.
Yeah, and I guess just one thing I'll add to this as well is that Jane Frankenberger is the director of the Watershed Academy, and she's with Ag and Biological Engineering at Purdue. So that's why you see the engineering.purdue.edu as far as going to the academy site. But she's a resource to have as far as questions and things related to water. So that's another really big benefit of being involved in the Watershed Leadership Academy. As Valerie mentioned, there's a lot of tools and resources that you get throughout the academy. And one of the ones that I really enjoyed was the How's My Waterway, which is a way you can look up different stream quality, or whether it be lake or river, ponds, any water body really in your county where there's been information collected through IDEM or any other Department of Environmental Management. I should not say acronyms. And that's one thing too they also cover in the Leadership Academy is making sure we're not falling into the trap of using acronyms. There's a lot of different acronyms that get thrown around, but really trying to understand how practices in the landscape influence watersheds and then how we can work together. And some of the ways that educators found this important was it really helped with the Plan Commission. So personally for me, that's something I'm dealing with now is a revision of the ag land use chapter of our comprehensive plan. And talking about water has been a part of that. So I'm really thankful that I recently went through the academy to kind of have a little bit more of that background. Tricia mentioned the 319 grants. That's also something that I'm involved in here in Franklin County. We have 2 different 319 grants that I sit on the steering committee for. So going through the academy was helpful for me to understand more about the Whitewater Rivers grant we have and also the Salt Pipe Creek. And then just kind of that watershed management at large and kind of how partners and players fit in together. And the thing that I found the most valuable and what we got back from other extension alumni was really that increased connection to resources and also just opportunities to collaborate with others kind of in this field. And then I'll turn back over to you, Valerie, to talk about what we actually do during the course.
All right. So during the course, there are 3 in-person workshops, which 2 of them were overnight. One of them is at McCormick's Creek, and the other one's at Lindenwood. And then May 28th is the graduation, and it's just a 1-day meeting. It's at Founders Lodge, which that's a different location than where Veronica and I met at, but it's in the Indy area. And then so you have those three in-persons, but in between them you have these 9 learning modules. And then you meet basically every other week via like Zoom, or I think it was Zoom. And then you also have homework assignments that you turn in. And the homework assignments, um, it says 2 to 4 hours. Some of them can potentially go longer. It just kind of depends on, um, I guess, how much time you want to put in it. But they recommend don't spending any more than 4 hours on them. And you turn them in. And then the nice thing about the homework assignments, if you turn them in by the kind of the due date, um, they have a committee that will review it and give you some comments back about, oh yeah, this looks great, or they might give you like ideas of, well, you could look at this way too, or whatnot. But they do have reviewers to look at your homework assignments. um and then so then you have, like I said, you have a virtual workshop. A lot of times Jane would cover a topic that was relevant for that week, um and then we'd break out into breakout groups and discuss, the homework or things like that also. Then in the in-person workshops, we gave presentations. So the first one was on a watershed related topic of your choice. And I believe it was just like a 5-minute presentation. So it wasn't anything, you weren't getting too in depth on anything. It was just 5 minutes. And I think Veronica talked about the Hellbender and her projects. And then I talked a little bit about the Purdue rainscaping program, because I've been a part of that in years past. And so again, real quick presentation. And then there's a group project that basically the idea is to contribute to watershed management in Indiana, and they project that to be about 10 hours. And then all the virtual and face-to-face sessions about 33 hours. And so for Veronica and I's group project, we actually surveyed educators and asked them about like why they attended and what they got from it and how they've used it in extension. And so Veronica's going to talk a little bit more about that in the next slide.
Yeah, so actually Valerie and I are completing the last step of our group project now with this presentation. So thank you guys for being here for that. But one of the things that we wanted to find out and that Jane Frankenberger was really interested in was how Extension has used this knowledge. So kind of going back to some of the questions you guys asked as to why you're interested, is similar to some of the alumni's responses as well. So these are just a few of the results we got from the alumni surveys. And Valerie, I don't know if I should have looked this up before, but do you remember the exact number of Extension alumni that have went through? It was less than 20, I think, since 2006 when the Academy opened.
It seems like it was maybe 10 or so, or somewhere in that range. I don't know.
Yeah, a smaller group. And
So,
Jane said, so in the 24 graduating class, Valerie and I, and also Jessica Altclott, having 3 Extension educators was the most they ever had. So the reason that we decided to do this as a project is we thought there was a gap there, and that a lot of educators could benefit going through this training, and just networking with others around the state that are working in a similar space, and also just learning more about some of those organizations like Soil and Water, some of our watershed coordinators, things they're doing and how we can assist them. So some of the ways that Extension has used this knowledge in the past is to help teach watershed stewardship classes, and then for a variety of presentations ranging from 4th grade with youth all the way up to adult presentations. And then, as I've mentioned before, the watershed steering committees, whether that was assisting as an advisor or the grant process, just being more familiar with that process. And that was something that we became more familiar with during the Academy. And then also different outreach activities and being involved with your local watershed. So for me personally in Franklin County, I've worked with our watershed coordinator to put on different events, like a septic workshop, and relating that back to the Whitewater River and its health. And then we've also talked about doing other workshops in the future with some best management practices with Soil and Water, and also the Natural Resource Conservation Service here. So just learning what other people were doing around the state too. So as Valerie mentioned, with the different presentations, you get to learn a lot about the different people in the Academy. And I will just say to preface that you don't have to have any experience in watersheds in order to be a member of the Academy. There were people that were a part of our cohort of about 30 people, ranging from people I would say were more on the expert end to people that were literally just getting started. And this was kind of their first introduction to to watershed science and watershed. So really you can be anywhere in the spectrum and fit into the academy. And the nice thing about that is you get to learn from others, and it just really broadens your understanding, and you have a better feel for the resources that are available maybe in your community as you do the homework assignments. It kind of pointed out things to me, like our comprehensive plan had some issues. So I became aware of that in the academy, and now we're trying to address that. So some of those things I thought were a big takeaway for me, and then these were other results. Valerie, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that before I go to the next slide.
Yeah, and I had served on a watershed steering committee also, and so there were things that like we were kind of at the end of our committee, and they've been applying for the 319 and haven't received it yet, um but there were things that I was like, oh man, looking back, maybe we should have done maybe this or this, and we should have added maybe a few other components to make it more successful. So that was a nice thing that if that kind of comes about again, I'll know, I guess, next round on maybe things we could do different. So it was really nice. And the networking, because it was really interesting to hear about because we had some people from INDOT, and then we had a retired sheriff that was running for a legislative position. So they had very different, coming from different areas. So it was really neat to like just hear like how they think of watershed management at in their different workplaces.
Yeah, and I will say too, on the leadership side of things, we talked about a lot of different tools, and Steve Yoder actually came in and did a facilitative leadership session on how, if you're running some of these outreach events or trying to gather feedback, whether it be for a steering committee, kind of how to do that and some tips and tricks. So I thought that was just helpful for any meeting you're running, not necessarily related to watersheds. And Valerie, I'll turn it back over to you to summarize some of these quotes.
So you probably saw, I think, these quotes in our flyer also, but the main gist that I got from about all the quotes is basically, we all have watersheds in our community, so obviously understanding watersheds better is probably important for extension educators. And then also a lot of folks mentioned that networking and the importance of networking, collaborating, and you might have, like during this class, we talked about maybe different community partners for different projects. So that was another option that, we talked about different community partners that maybe I would have never thought of. And other folks in my group thought of it. So that was kind of a neat activity, but definitely there's a lot of networking, and obviously, again, watersheds are really important for everybody.
The how to apply part. So if you're interested in applying this year, the deadline is November 1st. And then I don't know if it's necessarily required, but best practice to get area director approval before applying, just because it is a time commitment and there are several days out of the office with the in-person trainings. And then I'll go to the engineering website for the Watershed Leadership Academy so you can see how to apply and what that looks like, and go over a little bit of what questions you application. But the thing I think that's probably the biggest barrier for most people for attending the Watershed Leadership Academy is the fee price. So and I went through, the price was $850 total, and they've raised it to $950. But if you're a nonprofit, you get a discount. So for ours, when we went through, it was around, was it $650? I think with our discount. And then there also are funds that are available for, in Franklin County, I have professional development funds I could use to apply toward that. There are also SARE funds available that you can use, or you can apply for a scholarship. So if you apply for a scholarship through the academy itself, you can get cover or lowered to $550. So there are ways to kind of work around that cost. And I think that, yeah, like I said, that's a barrier for people. But for me personally, with my professional development funds at Franklin County, I definitely found it worthwhile to spend those funds. And then Valerie, you applied for SARE funds, right? So I don't know if you want to share.
Yes. Yeah. So contact Liz McCartney, and she can help you with that. She is an alumni from this program. So just, yeah, all you have to do is ask her, and she will give you all the details on what she needs from you. But and then I think I also split it with some funds that I had through the district. So I split it for that. And the nice thing is that this fee covers all your lodging and food and stuff while you're there too. So basically you pay this fee and you don't have to worry about paying anything else. So except for, you know, obviously mileage and stuff like that to get to the in-person events. But that's pretty much all the other expense, I guess, unless you want to go somewhere and buy stuff or go to a local venue or something. But that's totally up to you.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to point out, just with the photos you've seen in the presentation and the last one we have here on our thank you for the question and answer. These are all pictures mostly that I took throughout my homework assignments. So one of this was actually getting out in our watershed and looking at a specific issue. So I went around from the Brookville Lake where we have our dam and spillway there all the way down to the tailwater so where it feeds into the Whitewater River. So it was just nice too, like through the academy, got the opportunity to get out and learn a little bit more about what we have here in Franklin County as far as water resources. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everyone again. And then if anyone has any specific questions, I could answer those now before I share kind of the website and what that looks like.
Did you pay, so the 950 is if you have no like help funding it, right?
So as Purdue, you are a nonprofit, so it wasn't quite that much. It was a couple $100 less.
Okay.
So for me, I just used my Franklin County funds, but you can get help like through SARE, or you can apply through a scholarship in the academy. I just had that professional development money, what I used.
But you
there
don't
are
know what
ways.
the nonprofit rate is.
I can, let me pull up.
I think it's on the website. Yeah.
It is on the website, so I can show you what it is.
I thought the nonprofit was 950, but I don't remember.
Let me go ahead and share it. Okay, can you guys see the Academy website? Okay.
Yes.
So
yeah, 950.
So that is, okay, the 950 is the reduced fee. Yeah, and then I can go back to, see if this will work.
So do you know anyone that did get awarded the scholarship that only had to, so they only had to pay 550? Like, do you know of any extension educators that got that?
I don't know of any personally. Let me see if it says a little bit more about.
It's okay. It was just, I just want to make sure I understood the cost correctly, that's all.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly, Trisha, what that scholarship looks like, but
I think when you enroll, I think you can check like, hey, I need additional help, and then it might ask you some additional questions on that enrollment form, but I could be mistaken, but I thought it was kind of linked with the enrollment and you could check that if you needed additional. And
Sarah Peel is the Watershed Leadership Academy coordinator. So she's a consultant on like her outside life, but she works for Jane and part of this academy. She's the one like you can ask any like specific questions like that too, and she would be able to let you know like what the scholarship looks like. I'm not aware of any extension educators that have gotten it. I just know it's an option.
Thank you.
Yep. It's a good question.
Sarah is like type A, like she'll answer you, and she's awesome. She's who applied. She's the grant writer for our 319 grants in our county. That's who our stormwater hired, Sarah.
Yeah, and she's great to work with throughout all of the academy. Like if you ever have any questions about anything, like you said, she's like instant getting back to you, which was super nice.
What was the last?
Oh, go ahead.
What was Sarah's last name?
Peel. Peel, and I had her information on our flyer, and then also it was from the email that Walt originally forwarded. Her information was at the bottom of that too, if you wanted to reach out to her directly. Okay. But I'm sure. Let me go ahead and share this again. Actually, I'll just keep it up so we can walk through it. So Sarah's contact information is right here at the top line. Can you see me highlighting that? Hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah. But she's really great to answer any questions that Valerie and I can't answer.
Hey,
Thank you.
ladies, did you guys go through anything more than just surface water? Did you guys talk about groundwater or aquifers, or is it just mostly surface water?
Do you want to answer that one?
I'm trying to remember. I know it's
Yeah.
mostly service water, but I'm trying to remember. I don't remember if we talked about.
Yeah, I think the majority of the focus was on surface water, but I think there's the opportunity to talk about other things because throughout all the discussions, a lot of it is very open. Like, so we had like presentations that we would go through that were more formal on like certain topics. But then there was a lot of like time during the in-person workshops and even in the homework assignments for it to be flexible. So for there, if like there was a topic that you were specifically interested in, then you could like dive more into that. And the nice thing about Jane and Sarah is they have connections to so many resources that they could kind of help with that. One of the things that we talked about quite a bit this past academy, I feel like, was the LEAP project. And some of the different things happening up around Tippecanoe, just because that was new and Jane was involved with that. So that was kind of a topic that we covered.
Yeah, thank you. We had a water bottling plant want to come in, and the plan commission, it was just crazy. So much community interest, and just made me curious if you covered it.
Yeah. And I just reached out to Jane actually yesterday about an aquifer question they were dealing with in Franklin County. So I'm sure that she has a connection to those resources. So and that's the thing about water is there's so many things. So many things. Does anyone else have any other questions before I share the website again and kind of walk through what the application looks like? Or do you guys think that would be helpful?
I sure wouldn't turn it down.
Okay. All right. Okay, so make this just a little larger. So if you go to the Indiana Watershed Leadership Academy website, this homepage just has some of the very basic information, which was essentially what was in the body of the email that was originally sent by Walt. If you're wanting to apply, you're going to go to this Academy tab, and it kind of goes a little bit more in depth. Another thing you can do over here in the Watershed Leadership Academy information is you can view the syllabus for the Watershed Leadership Academy. So that kind of walks through in more depth what Valerie and I just kind of briefly touched on. And then you can also see all of like the past group projects that people have worked on. But if you're wanting to apply, there was just a couple of things I wanted to point out within the application. So the first part just points out some of the specific logistics of the course. But when you actually apply, you'll fill out just your basic contact information, your position. And then I think these kind of last questions are the ones that you have to put a little bit more thought into. So it's not just a quick Qualtrics to register, but some about your connection to watershed management. And as I mentioned before, you don't really have to have a connection. Like if you're not working with the watershed coordinator or closely with your soil and water, but you would like to, like that's something you could also note there. But as I mentioned, there were people in the course getting started that weren't affiliated with any university or organization, just there as individuals. So it's not necessary to be connected. And then also ask you about any other relevant employment or volunteer positions that might have been related to watersheds or conservation, just your education. And then I think probably the most important part is what your goals are for the academy. So how you're hoping to use the knowledge and skills that you gain from the experience. And for me, for my goals, they weren't super in-depth, but basically along the lines that I wanted to be able to better assist our watershed coordinator in working on the steering committees and just be more informed, which is very similar to all the things that you guys mentioned at the beginning of this call. So
I think that's pretty much what mine was, because I was on that watershed steering committee, and I think that was the same comment that I knew enough. I knew enough I could kind of muddle through it, but I wanted to like know more to be more of an asset versus just somebody on that committee you know, along for the ride, I guess. But, yeah, it was, like I said, the resources that we got and the networking was definitely, a lot. And then there was just a lot of information shared too.
Yeah. And there were different organizations that I learned about around the state just from people that there was a really nice mix of people. I think Valerie mentioned like NDOT was there. There were soil and water people there, watershed coordinators there, just individuals that were there. I'm trying to think of some of the other larger groups. There were nonprofits like the Nature Conservancy that were present as well.
Like the Friends group, like the Friends of the Wabash, Friends of the White River. There were
Yes.
folks from those entities.
From Department of Resources as well, some different divisions within DNR that I wasn't even really familiar with or knew that they worked with water. So just getting connected with some of those as well. A lot of parks departments as well. And there was a naturalist there. So a wide array of people. And like Valerie said before, it really made the conversations, I think, really robust just because we got to hear from a lot of different people's perspectives and where they were coming from as far as dealing with water, their interests.
So we
Do you guys
just
have-
hired,
Sorry, go ahead, Marty.
in this county, or I shouldn't say we, the Soil and Water District just hired a new person, a replacement. And so would this be something that would go to her and talk about maybe us doing this together?
I think that would be great, honestly. So the watershed coordinator in Franklin County, she had already been through the Watershed Leadership Academy. So I'd asked her about her experience before I applied. And our soil and water person is also relatively new. So I'm going to take this to her and be like, you should apply because I think that she would benefit from it. But if you guys could go together, I think that would be even better for the networking. And there were people that were there from like similar organizations, like within the same county, and they did their group projects together and something that they could actually on the ground in their county. So if you guys did go together, there could be that potential too, that you could do a project that would benefit on.
Any concerns when you're starting from zero, okay, from a knowledge base, you know, to know what it is that the county would need that isn't already in place.
Related to watersheds? Is
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, if I was to convince the soil and water gal to go, you know, it's just like we don't really have the knowledge base of what more is needed, or does that really get revealed once you're kind of in the program and you start thinking about, you know, and going back home for homework assignments and talking with people who do know the soil and water board, for instance. Yeah, I just feel like I'm so ignorant that I wouldn't know what to ask and where I could fit in.
And I thought it was interesting because some of the homework assignments, like we were looking up like our watersheds and if they were under management plans and stuff like that. And I thought it was kind of interesting because basically the whole northern half of Knox County has been under a watershed management plan. It's either currently under one or just getting done with one or vice versa, you know, all across the board. But the southern half, like they haven't done anything with. So I found that kind of fascinating that there hasn't really been anything done with the southern part of the county at this point. So so it might reveal something like that where there are some management plans already that have been done in your county. Maybe nothing's been done in your county, or maybe there's spots that you might find that, wow, there's something really going on in this area. So it might
Yeah,
reveal something.
The Southwest, we've got the big pine that goes through Benton County, and so I know that has been heralded as a successful watershed, but details I really don't. I'm not sure of, and I don't know what other ones are available or are in process in our own county.
yeah, the Big Pine actually was an example they shared during the academy. I think it was Leslie Grow, maybe the person that worked on that. But they actually shared that one as an example. For me personally, I think that it helped me identify some needs in Franklin County, or at least where I could help assist. Because like as Valerie said, we looked up different watershed management plans that were in place. So you could learn a little bit more about those. That's probably not something I would have done on my own unless I was prompted through the academy. And then also same with the comprehensive plan. For me, that really identified a gap that we had as far as there was really no language about water really at all. And we have a lot of water resources in Franklin County and with the Brookfield Lake and the Whitewater River, and really no mention of protection of natural resources. So something we're trying to do now. So I definitely think it was worthwhile for that, because going into it too, I was just personally interested, but just because water is something that I've worked with a lot with the Hellbender Salamander and the projects I've been on, but I didn't know as much about Franklin County in particular. So it was good for that. Does anyone else have any other questions for us? Valerie, is there anything you think that we forgot to mention, or like any parting words that we should say other than you shouldn't fly for the academy because it's worthwhile?
I guess if you have any other questions, you can reach out to us at any point, and I'm sure there's other alumni. If you know other alumni, I'm sure they would be more than happy to answer some questions. And I think they do modify the curriculum slightly, you know, from year to year. So based off of the previous class's response. So, you know, this class might be slightly different than, I mean, we already know the one location's different than where we met. So there might be some slight changes too, but hopefully for the better.
Okay.
Hopefully all good things.
Okay, well, thank you all for your time and interest in joining. Hopefully you found this helpful. Was it helpful?
Yes, I didn't have a clue.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, and that was kind of the thing too, is why we thought this project would be worthwhile, because when we applied, like I felt like that. I was like, I have absolutely no idea what I'm walking into. And like, it would have been nice to know from someone that went through the academy, what to expect and how it would help. So I hope this was helpful for you all. And like Valerie said, if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us or to Jane Frankenberger or Sarah Peel. They can answer like any other questions beyond what we can't. Thank you for your interest and for joining. We appreciate it.